Now this is quite unexpected. A Boku no Hero Academia chapter on a Thursday. I can deal with that. I'm fine with the Boku no Hero Academia chapter coming out early, especially when the chapter is this amazing. Like this chapter... Okay, look. Boku no Hero Academia is one of my personal favorite ongoing manga to read, especially shonen. And I gotta say, this is one of my personal favorites today. It definitely is. It's definitely up there as one of my personal favorite chapters today. This right here was a good chapter. A very good chapter. Just starting off with this video, I just gotta say, very good chapter. So, this chapter, for one, I just gotta point out, there is a bunch of bombshells. Like, so many bombshells, in fact, that this video could be long. It could be short. I have no idea. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 10 minutes. It could be an hour. I don't fucking know. But I'm just saying that there is a lot of bombshells. I need to talk about them. And there's quite good points throughout this entire chapter that just amazed me. And for one, it would be the reveal, the full name reveal of the previous user of One for All. Not All for One. I was going to say All for One. But the previous user for One for All. The one before All Might. Now, we already kind of knew the name, Shimura. And All for One actually reveals the full name of the previous user that was the person before All Might. They gave All Might his ability. The person's name is Shimura Nana. And the name means number 7. So, it's pretty much letting us know that, you know, Shimura Nana was actually the 7th user for One for All. So that's pretty cool. Food for thought right there. But anyways, getting on topic though, the full name being revealed, it makes me wonder if we're going to be getting a flashback very soon. Because the end of the chapter, it's exactly what I've been talking about for months now. I've been talking about it for months. This arc we're getting into is the arc. I can see where All Might dies. And this final page, this little final page right here, page 21, All Might is powering down. He's reached his time limits. So he no longer can use his quirk ability. He's going to be a weak, powerless All Might. That's exactly what he's going to become. And All for One, he's also in a weakened state, but he seems to be very much alive at this time, and he could probably still use his abilities. So, I mean, right now, this final page just blows me away because of one reason. The way this chapter has been set up, and the previous chapter, which I neglected to talk about, and a couple of you Chibits actually mentioned it in the comments, so I want to bring it up now, but there was actually some form of death flags. It seemed like death flags were building up for All for One, which is very strange, because if you think about it, All Might's the one that's constantly had death flags. He's the one that pretty much we know is going to die, but All for One is not doing too hot himself. He's in a very bad situation. He's in bad shape as well. I mean, look, you see this final page, the final panel, he doesn't look like he's in very good shape. And we saw a brief look at him a long time ago, like a brief glimpse. And if you see this right here, he doesn't look too good, especially after taking a fist by All Might to the face. And maybe there's a possibility, I'm just throwing this out there, but the way this chapter was, especially with the setup like the death flag for All for One and One for All, it makes me believe that maybe both of these two characters might kill each other in this fight, which I want to talk about. So let me explain. For one reason, throughout this entire chapter and last chapter, All for One has been showing signs that he actually cares about Shigaraki, which is very strange. And as we know, All for One killed the previous user of One for All, All Might's teacher, Shimura. And we also know that Shimura was killed, technically, and that it directly links to Shigaraki, his parents. I discussed this a couple of chapters ago. So with that being said, this raises many questions, because Nana, when I hear the name Nana, it makes me think of a woman. It makes me feel like it's a female character, which has never actually been point-blank said if the previous owner of One for All, before All Might, was a female user or a male user. It was never said. And so it makes me question if All Might's teacher was female because of the name, Nana. It makes me believe it's a girl. Now, I could be wrong, but that's what it makes me think of. So this would mean that this person might be Shigaraki's mother, not father. So it kind of deepens a little bit more. And another thing, too, to take note of is that with the constant babble from All for One constantly saying, Shigaraki, you need to continue fighting, you know, you need to grow and all that type of stuff, just trying to protect him, it makes me question the character of All for One. Like, not in a bad light, but it makes me start questioning is he really all necessarily evil like we think? And I feel like this is some really good writing when it comes to this chapter, because you don't know. His character seems a little bit complex or different from what we've come to expect, because when you think of an in-game boss, a villain, you think of someone that's absolutely evil. Someone that sometimes could be just one-dimensional, just straight up a villain, oh, I'm going to take over the world and that's it. And I wasn't thinking that, you know, All For One was going to be exactly like that, but I still thought he wouldn't be so interesting to the point to where you're wondering, he doesn't seem really all necessarily that bad. Even though he's evil, obviously, for some of the things he doesn't seem to be completely evil. At the very least, he cares about his comrades. He does things to protect them. For instance, Shigaraki. He cares about Shigaraki, and so he cares about the people that are close to Shigaraki, his teammates, and he keeps them safe. And we see examples of this in this fight going on right now with how he tries to protect him, and it's kind of exactly the same for what is going on with All Might. As you know, All Might currently, he cannot fight to his full strength because, you know, people are there. All of his fellow students, his, you know, people he's been trying to protect are there. He can't go all out, use his power to maximum. And after they left, he could actually do that. He could go all out. And I feel like the same could be said for All For One, since his fellow students were around, the people he's teaching, and, you know, Shigaraki, he couldn't go all out. He couldn't use all the power he had at his disposal because he might harm them. So I feel like when it comes to All Might's situation in the chapter, or these past couple chapters, the same could be said for All For One. So, for instance, the death of All Might coming also applies to All For One. The overall time limit of powers might apply, maybe not exactly the same, but maybe something similar in that regard, also to the point to where maybe they both care about the people they're taking care of, to where they can't use their maximum power, stuff like that is going on. So, I feel like this fight is a little bit more complicated than we actually think, because, I mean, right now, they're both have seen better days. All For One has seen better days, All Might has seen better days, they both seem to be in weakened states, and even what was strange about this entire chapter is that All For One even said that he didn't really want to fight. He didn't come there to fight. He didn't want to, but it's like, if you want to fight, I will give you a fight. Which, that really throws me off. When you think about a villain, you think about a villain that wants to fight, especially when it comes to a shonen. A fucking shonen. When it comes to a shonen, when you hear a villain say something like that, you're just like, what the fuck? It just makes you like, what? Like, a villain not wanting to fight? Like, what? So, it threw me for a loop. I was like, damn, a villain saying they didn't really come here to fight, and he wanted to leave, because, I mean, when I hear a shonen, I know it's just about, usually, a lot of action, and I'm not saying Boku no Hero Academia is that, and usually Boku no Hero Academia breaks these cliches, the shonen cliches, and it did it once again, especially with how it showed All For One in a different type of spotlight this week with the chapter. So, for the most part, I gotta say, is that there is a very likely possibility amongst this fight that's going on, both sides might lose. I feel like All For One might die, and All Might die. I feel like they both might die in the exchange. If not, All For One is probably going to be severely weakened to the point where he's pretty much useless, if All Might does die. Because this right here, it's a complete perfect setup for the characters to die, and I can see where this is going. Since we know All Might is the symbol of peace, and I guess you can say All For One is the symbol of terror, because, you know, he's like the symbol for villains. Or, I guess Stain is technically the symbol, but you get my point. It's like this. If both of these two different symbols die, it's like the next generation takes upon the mantle to continue that legacy. For instance, Izuku, he will take on the mantle of the symbol of the peace and become like the #1 hero and become All Might's successor. And Shigaraki, he will become the successor of All For One. He will become the next symbol of terror. I'm just throwing that name out there, that title. So you get my point. I feel like something like that could happen to where a new generation happens, a new villain generation happens, new hero generation, and they both exchange blows, and the story could take place like that after the death of All Might and All For One. That's just me throwing that out there. But another thing I want to talk about, too, is also how this chapter showcases, once again, how smart Bakugo is and the other students, our cast, like Izuku and them. Bakugo, when he grabs their hands, he actually uses his explosion, his quirk ability, to fly through the air and kind of boost themselves throughout the air. You get to see an example of this in one of the panels, which is really badass looking. Love the artwork on that. But it goes to show you once again how so many quirks can be used in different ways you never thought was possible, especially Bakugo's. And I find it very ironic how Bakugo is using his quirk like that when in just the recent episode of My Hero Academia, like if you go back to the recent episode that just aired last weekend, you will see in the fight with Izuku versus Bakugo, Bakugo actually is a very smart tactician. He knows how to use his quirk in fights, and we saw an example of this when he had his explosion come out of his hands and he rotates himself around like a 180-degree angle behind Izuku while he's dragging him or spinning him around. You see how he uses his quirk to maneuver kind of around. And this is not something that's relatively new to his character, but seeing how he continues to use his brain in certain situations along with his quirk and using it to the fullest as he possibly can, it makes me happy. So the mangaka clearly hasn't forgotten that touch of how smart these characters are, and continues to have excellent writing every single week. So yeah, the chapter blew me away. Now, one thing I do need to say before I end this video, Mount Lady, oh my god, you saved the day. Like, I gotta say, Mount Lady didn't have much of the spotlight, and I believe because of the anime, because so many actually loved Mount Lady, like, there was a lot of anime-onlys that truly loved Mount Lady. And I think it's because of the anime why Mount Lady probably became a reoccurring character, why she popped up again. I really believe that, I really do, because let's face the facts here. The mangaka that writes the series obviously watches the anime, or sees how his baby's being animated, so he knows how it's going. And I'm willing to bet when he saw the positive reaction for Mount Lady, he probably decided, you know what, since so many like this character, let's incorporate her a little bit more into, you know, the manga. And you notice ever since the anime started airing, Mount Lady started appearing, and in this chapter we see her save the day kind of in a way. She, you know, helps out the students escape. You know, Bakugo escapes, Izuku escapes, Ida and all them. They escape thanks to Mount Lady jumping in the way and taking a blow. So it makes me happy to see that. I'm glad she's actually becoming a very important character, and she's not in fact dead yet, but who knows, anything can happen right now. So that's my thoughts on this chapter. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about the entire exchange with, you know, All for One and One for All. And another thing too, do you think All for One is going to die? Do you think they both might die in this fight? And how do you feel about, you know, All for One's standpoint in this chapter? How he's like, oh, how do you feel about being on the top after sacrificing all my comrades and stuff? How do you feel about that, All Might? And it makes a lot of sense. It's exactly the same argument that Stain made. Like, if anyone didn't understand that, remember what Stain said, how the entire Hero Association is corrupt because they're all in it for the money, they got a job, and they're making a living off of just destroying villains. They're making a living and being able to live and all that, and they're just doing it out of their own self-interest. And villains, in a way, you can consider the heroes in this story, in a way, because they're trying to destroy a corrupt system that continues to harm everyone, or not really make a true hero. So, for what some of the villains stand for, it's actually pretty heroic in a way, and it's ironic how they're trying to help the system, and the heroes are actually kind of destroying the system. Anyways, you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.